What's going on, everybody? It's Sasha, your licensed real estate market expert here in Charlotte, and we are doing our live Q&A session. If you guys don't know, I used to do these once every month, and then this year I decided I'll do once a quarter, and now I'm thinking about doing it once every 2 months because, in all honesty, I really miss it. It's just a really cool way to connect with people, and I know people have so many questions. And some people are kind of hesitant to reach out to me, even though you guys know you can always call, text, or email me anytime. Some people might be a little bit further out and things like that. So they just hesitate to reach out. So having these lives, gives us a chance to kind of chat a little bit. And the sun is going up and down. So the lighting is going to be very different here in the office today, depending on how it goes. But if you aren't actually on this live right now and you see this after the fact, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll answer any questions that you guys may have. And obviously, if you are on the live right now, any and all questions are welcome. Want to get started and give you guys a quick rundown, which was very surprising that I saw just now when I logged into the MLS. You know, I did the market report last week, and if you didn't watch that, I'll post it right here after I re-upload this. But a quick 7-day snapshot, a quick 7-day market watch. This is what we have. 429 new listings coming soon. 1,750 new listings. 2,418 price decreases in the last 7 days. I'm going to say that one more time. 1,749 new listings in the last 7 days, 2,418 price decreases. Now we got a bunch under contract, no shows 565, under contract shows 1036. So you're looking at about 1,600 under contract and 1,422 closed. This new listing to price decrease ratio, I think this is the highest that I've seen it in recent memory, which is very interesting. But if you guys know this, because you have been watching the market reports, inventory steadily has been going up year over year, not month after month, because you guys know everything is seasonality. We're going to have new listings coming up now because of spring and summer. As we head into the fall and winter, the new listings tend to go down and buyer activity goes down as well. But with that being said, again, any questions you guys have, you always know you can call, text, or email me. I'm going to hop into a couple questions that I had on that market report video that I haven't had the chance to respond to yet. Three Monkeys. We've been looking in Mooresville and houses are being listed way too high. They are sitting forever, and when they do sell, selling for at least $100,000 under list. That, in my opinion, that's not my personal experience. Obviously, when someone's listing a house, it doesn't matter. They can list it for whatever price they want if they're using an agent, if the agent wants to list it at that price. But if you have a $400,000 house, you can list it for $750,000. That doesn't mean anybody's going to buy it, So sometimes that does happen. From my experience, as long as people are listing, and what I've been seeing is people are listing at essentially fair market value. Some people are still listing a lot higher than the market warrants for their house. But for the people that are listing at fair market value, when they do end up closing, I've seen $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 below ask. Obviously, everything varies. So depending on what price range you're specifically in, it sounds like you might be in a higher price range if you're seeing houses that are closing, $100,000 below list price. And you said at least $100,000 below list price. So it's interesting. But the Mooresville market, it's a great market. It's a great suburb. People love it because of the general location. You're super close to Lake Norman, obviously the schools, and they tend to have a lot of nice real estate. And for the people that are looking for the big lots, the nice houses with the big backyards and things like that, Mooresville's a really great area. I'm not going to say it's one of my personal favorites. I've done some transactions out there. I'm just not out there enough to, give you guys one of my favorites. Waxhaw, Marvin, Weddington, Wesley Chapel. I really like those ones instead of Mooresville, but I do think Mooresville is a great area for sure. Krasimir Petrov, inventory is increasing, just keeps going up. Not a good sign for spring selling season. Yeah, inventory is definitely going up. I think we are going to surpass that 3-month mark here in the next 1 to 3 months relatively easy. But believe it or not, it's the same market that we were in 2017, 2018, and 2019. We were hovering just under 3 months of inventory or so. But just to think of the fact that the Charlotte market has been so low in inventory for so long. And then obviously, as times are progressing, as times are moving, we tend to forget we were at the height of the crazy market. We had 0.4, 0.5 months of inventory, and we are literally 5x the amount of inventory than we had 3 years ago, which is absolutely crazy. And obviously the prices are still high. Our average sales price just hit a new all-time high. Our median sales price is probably going to hit the same all-time high we had. I think it might even surpass it, seeing how things are moving. So that's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, it's we're going to be going up and up and up, in my opinion. The market's definitely a lot tougher. Rates are all over the place. They're still relatively high. A couple things I do want to mention that I should have mentioned before this. I'm closing on another property at the end of this month, and I'm going to be putting it up for rent. If you're somebody looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, just under 2,000 square feet in the Mint Hill area, reach out to me if you might be interested in renting. Other than that, if you do have some real estate or if you have a house that you're looking to sell that needs a lot of work or anything like that, I am a buyer, cash buyer in this market. So feel free to reach out to me with that as well. And I have a house that it's a penthouse in South Park. It is absolutely gorgeous with insane updates done to it. It's not something that's going to be on the market for a little while, but if you're interested in a fully furnished penthouse with absolutely crazy updates to it, and I'm talking $1,300 ceiling fans in every room, this might be the one from you. I got a couple people on here, guys. Any and all questions are welcome, whatever the case may be. Ask me about zip codes, ask me about neighborhoods, ask me about the market. If you want to ask me about a specific house that's on the market or something like that, I can pull it up here and we can, kind of run through if it's a deal or no deal, whatever the case is. But any and all interest, just let me know. Let's see. Sam McKinney said, I wonder what one would rent for in regards to the video I made. And I was talking about some of the developments happening in the Charlotte area. And he's talking about the River District. River District pricing's very interesting. And somebody else had said the pricing seems high for the West Charlotte area. I 100% agree. Pricing will catch up to the West Charlotte area. But in regards to the River District, it's one of those things that is going to revitalize the whole area. In regards to rent prices, we're going to see what the rent prices are there. 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, is it going to be a studio, what the townhouses are going to rent for? But as you can expect, if the sale prices are going to be relatively high for the area, you're going to expect higher rent prices. And in the beginning of the whole sales process and everything like that, people are going to get those prices just because there's so much kind of hype, around that community. I think it's going to get, I definitely think it's going to get a lot of traction. And I don't think they're going to have any problems, as far as renting and as far as selling. I would love to look at their waiting list, to see how many people are actually interested in buying. Because just in the last 1 to 2 years, I've had a ton of people reach out to me in regards to having interest in, in wanting to buy there. 2+4, long live the queen. I think, did you change your YouTube name? Long live the queen. That is for sure. We're gonna see how long the queen can last, in this real estate market. Even though the data, which is what you should be paying attention to. I thought you changed your name. Even though the data that we're paying attention to is showing nothing but good things in regards to the real estate market, my gut feeling, in all honesty, is it's not good. I still think inventory is going to continue to go up. Eventually, the prices, I mean, it almost has to come down, but we've had so many radical changes happen in the last couple of years and they still haven't. So everything is still relatively in high demand, but things can definitely change. Charlotte is a great market. Charlotte's a great city. It has so much to offer for a ton of different people. However, we are not immune to something, happening to the real estate market. When those changes take place, just make sure you're there for a cycle that you can maybe take advantage of. That's all I kind of want to say right now. But as far as me personally, I'm still looking for houses that I can buy for myself. I'm looking to buy some houses and build my real estate rental portfolio, and I'm not interested in selling any of them anytime in the near future. It's going to be all a long-term hold for me, which I'm very excited about. I'm very nervous about. I actually have an appointment with my property management company tomorrow in regards to pricing that rental property I'm closing on at the end of the month. So, we'll definitely see how that goes. LB Huntersville needs to open up their roads if they're adding all of these new developments. Same issue in Mooresville. The traffic is annoying. That is one of the biggest complaints people are talking about, is the traffic. For the first couple, for me, traffic really wasn't an issue until these last couple of years. Traffic, in my opinion, has steadily been going up and up and up year by year. And with all of the new developments, with all of the communities that are being built, even in the highly condensed areas, it's going to cause more traffic, and it is absolutely inevitable. 485 toll road is going to open up soon. We have the 77 toll road. But traffic is just going to keep getting worse, unfortunately, because I don't see the influx slowing down. It will slow down from what we are. It's not going to keep hitting all-time highs. Eventually, we need to kind of cool off a little bit. But that's one of the things that we're going to have to go through with a growing city. And I moved, we closed on this house that we're in right now in November. We did a bunch of renovations and things like that. So I live essentially in the South Park area. And I do not leave the house without turning on my GPS because I never know what's going to happen. And plus, we're literally surrounded by schools in every direction. So it's one of those things that growing pains, as they call it. 2+4, infrastructure is definitely going to be an issue. And if they start road work everywhere all at once, then we will have road work traffic for like a decade. 100% true. We've already been seeing that. 485 honestly has been like under construction since I moved here just over 11 years ago. So, they're trying their best, and the whole light rail stuff is great, but reading some articles where we're headed as far as like future stuff, the stuff I'm reading, in 20-30 years we're not even going to be owning cars. There's going to be self-driving cars, and it's going to have a schedule, and it's going to be people Ubering everywhere and all types of craziness. So by the time they build, the new light rails going from Belmont all the way up to Indian Trail and things like that, it might essentially be obsolete. So it's fascinating trying to keep up with all the madness. This when I was talking about some of the new communities, Chris Harris said that house looks so cheap in Charlotte. I'd pay $50,000 maybe for that Charlotte build. It looks cookie cutter. You're not gonna pay $50,000 for it because it would never sell for $50,000. But I understand. A lot of people think that the new construction is cheap, it's built cheaply, and all that stuff. I don't agree. It's all built up to the standards that are in place as of now. And at the end of the day, real estate is always only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And now more than ever, I know I mentioned this in my market report before, unique houses, guys, are the ones that are selling. There's a house in the neighborhood right next door to me, Old Stonehaven, and it is the highest sale in the neighborhood that I've seen. The house got listed, it sold within the first couple of days. The asking price was $980,000, which is the highest price in the entire neighborhood. But the house is a mid-century modern, absolutely gorgeous, nothing that you come across normally. And what I've also noticed, newer construction, newer builds are a lot harder to resell. Number one, if you're in a neighborhood that's already building, that's in construction, and you're reselling after you've lived in it for a year or 2 years and they're still building in the neighborhood, you cannot compete with what the builder is offering as far as closing costs, as far as incentives, as far as interest rate. Very hard to sell. But even in those neighborhoods, there's a house that I just saw. You got about 4 houses sitting that are all relatively the same. This new one hopped on the market, and these people essentially over upgraded this house. All of the other houses in the neighborhood have been sitting for over 50 days, and this house sold within the first couple of days, even though same floor plan, same everything, and it sold for more money because the sellers did a bunch of updates to them. And that's what's getting houses sold quickly. You know, a lot of people want something that's almost done over the top, and they want something that's more unique. You know, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Have you seen any price dropping in any sub markets like Mont Clair between Park Road and South Boulevard? Mont Clair is it's a really nice neighborhood. I really like Mont Clair and Starmount that's right next to it. Prices dropping, no, but obviously some of the houses over there, because of the neighborhoods, they were, you know, built in the early 50s, 60s, and 70s. You never know what condition a house is going to pop up over there. So the only ones that I see that are relatively good prices and or good deals are the ones that need a decent amount of work. But for the most part, no. I've seen a couple houses in the area that hit essentially kind of record highs for the area here in the last couple months. So I haven't seen any, you know, happening over in that area unless it needs a ton of work. 2+4, I work on the big customs all over town. Most of the builders I talk to are more than confident and keep starting new ones. 100%, like I said, you know, people want a lot of more of the unique houses. I'm really falling in love with these townhouses that they're kind of building. You know, they're almost like duplexes. And essentially, it's almost like a single family home. They're just building 2 townhouses right next to each other, and they have a backyard, and they're super nice. And I mean, that's like a goal of mine, is to, you know, buy a piece of land and start developing something like that, because I mean, they're great. You know, they're great. It's not, you don't really have an HOA. You don't have an HOA. If you want to do something, I guess you can deal with your neighbors or something like that in regards to fencing. But it's essentially, you're a single family home. You're just attached to another unit, and there's only 2 units, which I really like. But yeah, a lot of the custom homes, it's kind of crazy. I've been looking at houses too that are kind of in the multi-million-dollar price range, and the ones that are super custom, they're still selling relatively quickly too. There was a house I recently looked at in Waxhaw listed at $2.9 million, and it only took a couple weeks to sell. I got a little bit of an inside scoop. We got an NFL player buying that house. So, you know, for the custom stuff, it's definitely moving, and I'm very interested to see how everything starts to play out here, you know, in the next couple of months. For it being, you know, heading into summertime, things are still moving. If you go on Zillow or any of these websites, if you start looking at the map and seeing what's active, what's pending, you know, the houses that accepted offers, the houses that are still sitting, you're going to see still a large majority of those houses have accepted an offer. So the interest rates, unfortunately, are not helping a lot of people, because they just keep going down and up and down and up. Luckily for me, in regards to my investment property, I locked in a rate right away. I got a 6.875, and I just looked today, they're hovering in the low 7s again. So it's going to be interesting. Voice of Reason. I have been monitoring the Charlotte area market on Redfin and Zillow for the last year and a half. I put houses in my favorites list and watch how much time it takes to sell each house and for how much it goes. I'm seeing very meaningful $120,000 price adjustments now, and the houses are sitting on the market for 120 to 150 days. These houses are in the 450 to 650 range. I'm choosing to wait 6 more months before I buy. Yeah, that's something I always recommend somebody doing. If you're, in the market for a house, if you really want to buy in a specific area, make sure to favorite a bunch of houses and then see the activity that's happening in those houses, see how quickly they're closing. But at the end of the day, that's going to be our new normal. We're heading into a completely different market than we had. The new normal is going to be houses sitting on the market for 60 to 90 days plus. And it's going to be very interesting. And eventually it's going to catch up in regards to pricing. It definitely will. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't really justify a house sitting on the market for 150 plus days or something like that without a, significant price reduction. Pujit, what's going to happen with the Brook Hill Village area in South End? Thoughts on WISO becoming a thing? I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't even know that WISO is becoming a thing. Does it surprise me? Absolutely not. The trend in Charlotte is slapping a cool name on an area and a brewery opening up, and things start to just kind of transform because everybody's looking for the next big thing. People want, hey, what's going to be the next South End? What's going to be the next Villa Heights? What's going to be the next Matthews? What's going to be the next Ballantyne? So it doesn't surprise me. It's going to keep expanding. Everything is just going to keep expanding unless we run into some, economic turmoil where the projects need to kind of come to a halt, even though we're kicking off things like crazy. But it's going to keep expanding. One of the big indicators that you guys can all look for if you're looking for, areas that are essentially transitioning is a lot of the builders and investors. They're buying in some areas. They're knocking down these small houses. They're building $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes there, and apartment buildings, townhouse communities, and things like that. Very easy to do, and I'm telling you, if you just drive around Charlotte and just pay a little bit more attention, you can see what areas are going to be not the next big thing, because once you start kind of getting to the next big thing, it's already kind of over that hump where it might be overpriced. So sometimes if you're looking to get into an area, you might need to be a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning stages of that. But, the South End area is only so much, and it's going to expand, and it already has. If you just take South Boulevard and you drive, you hit South End, then you go to Loso, and then potentially WISO. Hilarious. And, you're going to start seeing more apartment complexes and buildings. And obviously these people are investing millions, $100 million into some of these buildings. And to follow is going to be neighborhoods revitalizing. It's just the natural kind of progression that's going to happen. Same thing with the River District. River District is 100% going to revitalize the West Charlotte area. A lot of the people, or not a lot of the people, some people that I know that I help buy houses in the West Charlotte area and like the vineyards at Lake Wiley, that big master plan community over there, they knew about the River District coming into play, and they're essentially anticipating, hey, this is the first phase and there's going to be a lot others to be built. And that's what's happening. Driving to the airport, if you're taking 74, 277, that whole area 5+ years ago was horrible. Now a lot of it is becoming revitalized. They have the new, apartments for rent over there happening. They're starting to build townhouse communities. So these things are going to continue to change. Like I said, unless, some economic things start to happen and things take a little bit of a downward trend, which if you're a buyer out there, that should be a good thing for you. Me, I don't want to miss out on anything. I honestly missed out on a lot of good opportunities from 2020 up until about 2023, because in the back of my head, I was like, this market really doesn't make sense to me. How can the prices jump up this high? And I was very nervous to get into it. And now I'm looking to buy a house per year minimum. And yeah, I don't really care what the prices do in the next 1 to 2 years. I care about what the prices are going to do in the next 10 to 15 years and even beyond that. RJ Spain, I saw someone online saying Charlotte NC's state tree is the construction crane. State flower is the orange traffic cone, and the state bird is the finger of the guy in the car beside you. That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you come to Charlotte, when you see all the construction, when you see all the cranes, but it's not surprising. I mentioned this in a bunch of my videos. The Charlotte population is expected to double by 2050. What's going to happen? You need more housing. The housing, you can't have double of the population in the Charlotte area and expect housing prices to go down by 30, 40, 50% because it doesn't make sense. Granted, the numbers, it's very interesting because I believe 42%, if not more, of the transactions in regards to real estate are happening by the boomers. And first-time home buyers, the average age of the first-time home buyer keeps going up year by year. And I believe the average age of a first-time home buyer right now is 38 years old. That's not old by any means, but it used to be, 24, 25, just about 10 years ago. Now it's 38, which is honestly scary, and it makes sense because when you look at the prices, when you look at the interest rates, the amount of money that you need to qualify for a loan for, a quote unquote starter home is a lot. And especially right now, if you compare the rent prices to the mortgage prices of the same exact house, it's cheaper to rent right now than it is to buy, but people are still buying. I was just analyzing a deal for a house here in the South Charlotte area. It's a pretty nice house. It has a tenant in place already. It's listed just under $400,000 and the tenant wants to stay there long term. So I called the agent and I was like, hey, I know the tenant's in there right now. They want to stay in the house long term. What are they charging for rent? $1,500 they're charging for rent on this 1,200 square foot house. And I went in and I did, mortgage calculation. Hey, if I bought this house for $400,000, I put down 20%. What's my mortgage payment going to be? My mortgage payment was like $2,300. So if I wanted to buy that house as an investment and keep the tenant in there, I'm losing $800 a month. It makes no sense. And they marketed it like tenant in place. It's a great opportunity and everything like that. But when you run the numbers, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense for somebody wanting to put down half. If you have a $200,000 down payment, if you could buy the whole property in cash, or something like that, or maybe even if you want to do a short-term rental situation, then it makes sense. But buying it just outright doesn't make sense. So the money for investors, in my opinion, is going to be in the refinance. If you can find something that's relatively okay, maybe even come out of pocket. If you can break even, that's a dream. If you come out of pocket maybe $100 to $200 to $300 a month and you're totally okay with it, you can totally sustain it. The money's going to be in the refinance. Eventually when the rates, get down to the mid fives, 5%, hopefully mid fours, high fours, at that point when you can refinance, your mortgage payment's going to drop a couple $100 and then you're eventually going to be in the positive. But I only recommend that for kind of experienced people and obviously if you have the capital to do so, because you're negative $200-300 a month, and then the AC goes out, something happens, you need to make a claim on the roof or whatever the case is, it could put you upside down. So new investors and things like that, I think you should definitely tread carefully unless you can find a deal that has a large chunk of equity inside of it. But it's very interesting, and you still got a lot of out-of-state people investing. A lot of people from California, New York, all these, major cities that are a lot more expensive than Charlotte is, they're okay because in California, if you buy a house, for you to positively cash flow is almost impossible because their median price point is $700,000-800,000 depending on where you are in California, and that's for a beat-up house. Jarvis said, this was a couple of months ago, Jarvis said, what town are you moving to? I live in the 28211 zip code. So I'm in South Park. South Park Mall is about a 5 to 7 minute drive away from me, which is great. But again, traffic sucks, so I always need to check my GPS, depending on where I'm going. Very interesting what's happening in Florida. What do you think will happen in the future? I don't know. I'm not in the Florida market. All I see is kind of the stuff in the articles I read. But as far as I know, Florida is going to be, in some big trouble because a lot of those apartment buildings and condo buildings, they're doing these ginormous assessments and they're charging the people that live there these assessments and people can't afford them. So Florida's going to be a very interesting market, to see what's going to happen. I have a friend that's a personal chef in Florida, and he just did a big event for a big time guy, and it turns out he's selling his it's like 25 to $30 million house that he just bought 2 years ago, and he's selling it now, and he's a finance guy, so watching out for stuff like that's very interesting. Always see what the bigger companies and things like that are doing. And in regards to what we talked about earlier, as far as areas revitalizing and things being built, you got these companies building these new construction single family homes, new construction townhomes that are for rent only. There's another one here in the Oakhurst area that I just saw pop up, and it's just fascinating to see, and I don't get worried about it. I just don't like the direction that things are heading. I really feel like the government, the powers that be, want this country, like some other countries across the world, to be renters, which is it's very interesting, kind of going down that path, and it just makes me nervous, and it puts kind of a clock, if that makes sense, for myself personally, because I want to try to buy as much real estate as I possibly can. If these people, these multi-billion-dollar corporations and venture capitalists are building real estate to hold on to and they're not even wanting to sell it, just makes me think in the back of my head, why are they doing that? What's going to happen? And obviously with all the inflation stuff, I don't see things getting cheaper. I really don't see things getting cheaper. In regards to real estate, anything and everything can happen, but all around life, all around expenses for people, I don't see things getting cheaper. Stove guy, I'm good. I bought 25 years ago. Recent buyers are screwed. Yeah, and it's like I said, the average age of a first-time home buyer now is 38 years old when, just 10 years or so ago, the average age was 24 or 25. So it's sad, man. It's really sad. And when I first started in real estate in 2018, I worked with like a lot of my colleagues. I used to be a paramedic, so I worked with a lot of my colleagues, and I don't know exactly how much they made, but I remember how much I made per year. And I worked with a lot of them, but I have not worked with any of my, recent colleagues on the buying side in a very long time because of the prices. They're making 30, 40, 45, maybe $50,000 a year. And if you're single trying to buy on that, and obviously it all depends on debt too. I've helped them sell and things like that, but buying is just so hard right now for the first time home buyer. You need to know what areas to look for. That's why you have all the development expanding. Sherrills Ford, Troutman, Statesville. You got a lot of people going to Lancaster County. Rock Hill is still a great area, depending on kind of where you are. But real estate wise, Rock Hill, Fort Mill, a lot of bang for your buck still. Even though Fort Mill's starting to definitely get pricey over there because a lot of the families, are going there for the schools and things. Kellis, I see a lot of people stretching themselves in the South Charlotte area. South Charlotte area, in regards to if you just take Charlotte, yes, by zip code and things like that, it's one of the more expensive areas to live. And, I never take things kind of at face value because I've seen people put down a lot of money. I've seen people buying cash and things like that. So, we don't know kind of what's happening, but Yeah, some people are definitely stretching themselves, and that's not something you should do. Unless you're comfortable, you have to be comfortable with your mortgage payment. You have to be comfortable with your monthly payment. Don't force yourself to stretch out of reach just to buy a house. Save up as much as you possibly can. The Fed can't lower rates because it will increase house prices. People with 3% rates won't sell because they will have a downgrade in house when they buy back in the sevens. I think prices may go down a little bit, maybe 5-10% max. Then the Fed will drop the rates a tiny bit and boom, we'll be back to the current prices. Yeah, that's 100% true. If we drop the rates to like the magic number, which they say is 5.5%, prices are definitely going to go back up. But, and then, yeah, we're kind of going to be in the same place right now. But the thing that just, it's crazy is just we keep hitting these all-time highs. We're going to hit all-time high in inventory, like I talked about in last month's report, in the next 1 to 3 months, in my opinion. And from there, unless something happens to the prices, unless something happens to the rates, inventory is going to stay hovering right around there. Daniel Sosa wanting to relocate or even having a second location. I own a suit business for professionals. What area would you say is the best district in Charlotte? In regards to your business, if you own if you own a suit business, I would be in the South Park, Ballantyne area, something like that, where a lot of the business districts are. Obviously, Uptown is a great option as well, but we have a ton of different areas that can meet a bunch of different needs for people. That's one of the great things. That's one of my favorite things about Charlotte, because you can just keep exploring and exploring because of all the different areas and what they provide. So essentially, in regards to business, you're going to want to be in an area that has that clientele. You don't want to be out in Waxhaw, for example, as far as the suit business. You want to be the area where the action is and where the high target shopping is. What's the deal with Denver, North Carolina? Denver is a market that I'm so surprised by as well, because 5 to 7 years ago, you could have bought a really nice single family home for $350,000. And now that same single family home is going to be between, actually, you just need $500,000 roughly to start, in Denver. And that might not even get you to where you want to be. But over in that area, a ton of activity. Because once you're driving up to Denver, you're just seeing these big, gigantic shopping plazas being built, and that whole area as well is getting revitalized. Denver's one of those towns, in my opinion, that goes under the radar, that not a lot of people know about unless you live there, unless you visited there. But it's a nice market. I like it. The more time I spend in these areas that are kind of outside of the city, they really have a lot to offer. They really have a lot to offer. As long as you're okay with being 45 minutes, maybe an hour away from Center City, Charlotte, and things like that, there are a ton of great options out there when you're looking outside of the Charlotte area. Crystal, I moved to southwest side of Charlotte near Steel Creek. My favorite areas in Charlotte are South Pineville, Ballantyne, Matthews. On the north side, Prosperity Church Road, Highland Creek. Yeah, you hit on a lot of the popular areas. Obviously, a lot of the areas in South Charlotte, they're the areas that were super popular 10, 20 plus years ago, and they're super popular now. And then north, you guys know this, 28269 is one of my go-to zip codes. I think it provides a lot of house for the value. I think it provides the great location. I think it provides the building. I think it provides the growth that's happening in the area, because we're just seeing more and more being built on top of it. And Highland Creek is just a really, really cool neighborhood. My insurance guy, we're gonna see things changing with insurance too. Things are just kind of getting out of hand with insurance and things like that. I recently had a closing, and my client was having issues with an insurance company because the roof was 13 or 14 years old. A lot of these companies, these insurance companies, guys, they're not going to insure the house, and it might mess up your entire deal. A lot of these companies won't even mess with a house that has a roof that's over 15 years old. So finding out that information prior to submitting an offer, prior to going under a contract, is something that you need to do. If you need somebody for insurance or anything like that, you guys can always reach out to me. I got a guy that will definitely take care of you, but that insurance is definitely an issue that I've seen here that's caused some deals to kind of not go the way they're supposed to go. I see many flipped houses now sitting on the market in Charlotte. Some flippers got greedy and now price cutting $20,000 a month in some cases. Some go under contract but come back on the market as if the inspection issues found on the flips. It's tough. Right now, it's definitely tough for flippers because of the margins. And yeah, I agree with you. I see a lot of houses that have been renovated, that have been flipped, and sometimes they're just asking outrageous prices. There's one right now, it's still on the market, so I'm not gonna say the address or anything like that, but this was a house that I was actually interested in buying at the time, but the seller wanted too much money for it, and there was nothing that I could personally do. It wouldn't make sense for me to buy it and rent it out. So somebody else ended up buying it, and they are, oh my God, they are priced extremely high for the work that they did to this house. And they actually just did a $25,000 or $30,000 price cut this past week, because I'm guessing there's no showing activity, because a simple search online in regards to neighborhood sales is going to tell you that that house is way overpriced. So yeah, you're seeing a lot of that, but comparing to the amount of activity that we had for flipped houses from 2020, obviously before that, but from 2020 up until about 2023, it has died down, quite a bit. And obviously people that own houses here in the Charlotte market, everybody thinks their house is worth, however, not every house is $500,000. I talk to a lot of sellers because I do a lot of cold calling and things like that. And it's just so interesting, the mentality, some people have, and I can't blame them. Maybe they're just not, even interested in selling. So it's kind of like a, hey, make me move number. I know it's only worth $400,000, but I don't want to sell it. But if you give me $500,000, I'll sell it. But I've talked to so many people that are like, yeah, I want $500,000 for this house. Okay, what work did you do? Can you tell me a little bit more about the house, XYZ? And then, oh, nothing's been updated. Most of the stuff is original. The roof is 30 years old, XYZ. And then you look up the house, you look up the neighborhood, and it's like, well, sir, there's a similar house to you in regards to square footage, in regards to lot size and everything like that, is selling for $450. Yeah, but I want 500,000. So, a lot of the stuff is emotional. Sometimes you cannot, rationalize with fact, logic, and reason with some people. So yeah, the flipper market's definitely taking a hit. You just gotta figure out when to buy it right. Any comments on 28210 zip code? 28210 is essentially the South Park area, which is the zip code that's next to mine. Amazing zip code. Absolutely love it. All good things. I mean, honestly, all good things to say about, as long as you got $700,000-$800,000 minimum, it's a great zip code to be in my opinion, due to the schools, due to the general location of everything that you have. And if you live in South Park, you have everything at your fingertips. There's no really need to go anywhere else or go outside the area. And again, I have a penthouse condo, fully furnished, updated to the gills, that is available. So if you're somebody that might be interested in something like that, reach out to me and I'll give you a little bit more details on it. Kellis, when I drive around Ballantyne, I feel like I'm in Beverly Hills. $100,000 to $250,000 cars everywhere. I've never been to Beverly Hills, so I am not, I'm not sure. But yeah, Ballantyne is just one of those areas that's just great. If I was in the price range, the houses are just really big. I don't really personally have a need for it, but everything Ballantyne offers is just great. And it's one of those high-end areas. everywhere you go is just super clean. People are just really friendly. And yeah, you definitely see, obviously nice cars, to go along with those houses. We're having people from out of state pushing prices. That, you know what, that's actually a really good point. Me personally, I moved here from Ohio, where if you know anything about Ohio, in Cleveland, Ohio, the houses now, people over there think that they're crazy expensive, but even now the prices over there are not, crazy expensive. A lot of the people that, I deal with and things like that, most people moving to Charlotte, in my opinion, from my personal experience and what I've seen, they're moving from higher price cities. So when they come over here, you can get more house for the money. And one of the biggest things is property taxes. I've worked with people that paid, wherever they move from, they paid $10, $15, $20,000 a year in property taxes alone. So when you come here and you go from paying $10, $15, $20,000 a year in property taxes to buying a six, seven, $800,000 plus home where you're only paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year in property taxes, you're saving so much money. You could put your kid in a private school, a charter school. It just takes care of so much bills when you're able to save that amount of money. Question, why are prices going up in Charlotte? For example, my house just went up $10,000 in price and I was shocked by how much it went up. Is it because Charlotte is a growing city in terms of jobs and other factors that make for these higher prices? Yes, 100%. Charlotte's one of those cities, and the growth, we're in inbound state. More people are moving to Charlotte than people that are, leaving Charlotte. The job market is relatively good and we just keep expanding. You got really good weather. You got a bunch of different areas that provide different things for different types of people. You got good schools in a lot of different areas. It just has so much to offer. I'm not saying it's the greatest city in the country or anything like that, but it's an amazing city. It's an amazing city, and as of right now, we are not slowing down. Guys, it's been 52 minutes on the live. Any and all questions that you have, as normal, you can always call, text, or email me anytime. It's about time for me to go walk Luna, and then wifey should be coming home from work. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And as always, like I said, call, text, or email me if there's anything I can ever do for you. And yeah, let's see how the market unfolds. I appreciate you guys watching. Take care. Bye.